Welcome to Plan9Crunch. My name is Doug Gibson, and I'm here by myself today. And we are going to do another in our line of random B or C movie reviews. Today, we are doing The Alligator People. And what's cool about that is The Alligator People was released 65 years ago today. It's from 20th Century Fox, which was a kind of major studio back then, but it's a low budget film. It only cost $300,000, and it was made to co-bill with Return of the Fly, which I think is an Edward Burns film. Roy Del Ruth, who used to be a bigger name in the 40s, directed The Alligator People. And I like this movie a lot. I really do. I think it's a very effective film. It does have one tarnish in it that is a bit risible, and we'll talk about that. Now, the plot goes this way. There's this nurse played by Beverly Garland, who was a ubiquitous star in the 1950s, that era. Very beautiful woman, very talented actress. And she is the nurse of a psychiatrist. And he calls another psychiatrist in to watch sessions where they put her under, give her sodium pentothal, and she recounts a very traumatic experience she had, which she doesn't remember when she's not under the trance. This is how the film kind of starts. And so what happened is, when they start it, the film will go in and tell you what's going on. And she's on a train with her fiancé. I think they just got married. So that guy is played by, what's his name? It's Richard Crane. And he's Paul Webster, and Beverly Garland is Joyce Webster. So they're newlyweds. Richard Crane, by the way, was in The Mysterious Island, a serial from the early 1950s. He also is in a low-budget horror film from the 60s called House of the Damned, which pops up all the time on the Fox movie channel right now. So they're all lovey-dovey. Everything's going great, but he gets a telegram on the train. He suddenly changes demeanor completely. He takes off, and she never sees him. The last thing she sees is him just standing on the train as it's going away. And so a couple of years pass, and she's been trying to find him. And she finally goes to his old college records and discovers that he lives in a remote plantation at Bayou Landing, Louisiana. And she's going to go out there and try to see him, find out what's going on. And so when she gets to the train station that will eventually the last stop before she goes to Bayou Landing, it just happens that a character, and this is a star in the movie, a horror star, Lon Chaney Jr. is at the train station. And he plays Manon, who is like a handyman. He handles alligators and things like that. He has a deep hatred for alligators because they took off one of his hands. And so she meets Lon Chaney there, although he didn't know she was going to be there. And I want you to look at Lon Chaney's persona in this film. He was a severe alcoholic, unfortunately, and he kind of shows it. But he's an excellent actor. Sorry about that. He really was more grounded in film, I think, than even Lugosi and Karloff. People might find that controversial, but if you look at Lon Chaney's acting career, he was in a lot of various movies, particularly westerns and dramas. And so we're going to cut right now to this clip from The Alligator People. Thanks, Jack. Bayou Landing, it says.
Well, I'll be. Somebody meeting you here, sweetheart?
No. I thought... That is, I hope somebody'd come to pick up this.
Well, that's me. You just didn't get off. You must have had some good reason.
Do you know a place? I think it's a plantation called the Cypresses.
Uh-huh.
Would it be too much trouble to take me there? I'd gladly pay you.
They don't never have no visitors. Was they expecting you?
No, not exactly. But they will know who I am.
Well, for you, sweetheart, I'll take a chance.
Okay, thanks, Jack. We
Go
can
ahead, just
move away
climb
from
in.
that now. He takes her there, and he is an odd duck, Lon Chaney's character, and he sort of frightens her a little bit. He has a deep hatred, as I mentioned, for alligators, which is kind of unfortunate because he works among alligators. He's kind of the handler there. So she gets there, and she meets the matron of this plantation. And the name of this person, well, the name is Mrs. Lavinia Hawthorne, and she is played by Frida Inescourt, who genre fans will remember because she was Lady Jane Ainsley in the classic 1943 Columbia Return of the Vampire starring Bela Lugosi. She plays a Van Helsing character in that type of film, very strong-willed. Well, but Frida Inescourt. By the way, Frida Inescourt was also, believe it or not, Carolyn Bingley in the early 1940s Pride and Prejudice with Greer Garson, Laurence Olivier. Kind of weird she'd play a 21-year-old woman or so because she was 40 when that movie was made in 1941, but they did that in Hollywood back then. Anyway, so Inescourt's character tries to discourage Beverly Garland's character to not be there. She's obviously trying to hide something. However, she's stuck there for the night, so they put her up for the night, tell her not to leave the room. And you find out more about this place, that there's a lot of alligators being trapped, and there's always men in white shirts and white pants. It's like a hospital type setting where they're going around. And at night, Beverly Garland's character hears a piano playing, and she can only see from the back. But we know it is her long-lost husband, all right? And so she also gets some hints from other people of what's going on, so she refuses to leave. And Frida Inescourt's character, who turns out to be her mother-in-law, actually, gets a doctor working there to try to talk her out of it. But Beverly Garland's character, Mrs. Webster, she is determined to stay there and figure out what's going on. So I want to mention something. I don't want to give away this entire plot, but I don't like the makeup for the fully completed alligator man in this movie. I want to show you right now a scene where you see Paul Webster, her husband, who's obviously already affected by what they've done to him. He's starting to turn into an alligator. But in my opinion, he looks much more scary and effective looking like this, and I kind of wish that the filmmakers had kept it this way. Let's watch a brief thing, Jack, of scenes with him as the film goes partially afflicted by turning into a reptile here, okay?
So without extensive experimentation...
But there's no time for that. I want it now.
You don't think I'd take the risk after the tragedy I've caused already?
But you're causing a worse one to my wife. You said yourself the X-ray was definitely helping.
Like positive indications, yes.
Then combining X-ray with gamma radiation from the cobalt might cure me completely.
And it might kill you. Oh, who knows? I just can't do it, Paul. It's too great a risk.
We wouldn't be alive at all, any of us, except for you.
Did you hear all the stuff they said? Cobalt, gamma rays, radiation. So I didn't do a backstory here, but what happened was when they're in that train, the newlyweds, she's talking about how badly injured he was, and she was told he was going to die and everything. And her husband, Paul, is kind of just sort of avoiding the subject. Well, the reason he got that telegram was because in order to return him to life and to repair his limbs, they used alligators. And they used a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo they liked in the 1950s of cobalt, radium, and stuff like that. And so that brought him back. Unfortunately, they eventually started turning into reptiles, all right? And so that's the reason Paul ran away, and that's the reason why he's stuck looking like that right now. And they're kind of trying to keep the truth away from his wife. Now, like I mentioned, I like Frida Inescourt as an actress. And I think she plays a good, steely role through most of this film. But there comes a time when she starts to wilt and she starts to become an ally of his wife. While that might be appropriate for the film, I didn't like the way Inescourt's acting went down and more overly emotional. Inescourt's an iron-willed character actress. Okay, she should have done a better job, I think, of being something like Vincent Price in The Fall of the House of Usher, where she's implacable and doesn't change her personality. So that's a minor flaw in the film. Another one that kind of bugs me is that Lon Chaney eventually has a scene where he attacks Beverly Garland and actually tries to rape her. I didn't like that kind of character arc for Chaney's character, simply and possibly because I'm a big fan of his, and I just didn't like to see his character do that. Now, as we get to the end of the movie, Chaney, after having been vanquished by Paul after trying to hurt his wife, comes back and causes some real mayhem when Paul is getting another radium, gamma ray, whatever radiation therapy. And now you're going to see what the final monster looks like. And I don't think it's a good job. I think it's frankly very risible. It does not detract from the fact that this is a good, solid B or C horror film from the 1950s. Better than an average one. I urge you to watch it. But let's go and watch right now what the final monster looks like. You saw what he looked like before, which I thought was almost Boris Karloff-like in The Mummy. Pretty effective. But here we go now. There's Chaney's character. Can't believe what he's seeing. Does that impress you? Maybe I'm wrong, people, but it's like he's gone to the store and got the alligator shirt. And Chaney bites the dust here, sort of like the Indestructible Man movie. There's Frida Inescort, by the way. It just looks like a very, very a very, very well done Halloween costume to me. But I think it's less effective than the way Paul looked early in the movie. We can cut away now, Jack. Okay, so we're going to wrap up now. The Alligator People is on YouTube. It's got excellent prints. You can find it anywhere. It's probably on stuff like Amazon also, I imagine. It's a good movie to watch. It's a good, effective movie. I think it deserves kudos. I'd give it between 2.5 and 3 stars out of 4 stars. It's a good genre cult film, and watch it tonight because you're celebrating the 65th anniversary of it. And so I just want to say thank you for watching this. I'm Doug Gibson. We're from Plan9Crunch, and Plan9Crunch.com is our blog. It'll be our website. And we're also Plan9Crunch podcast and blog at Facebook. Give us a like or a follow. We're on TikTok, so you can follow us there. And most importantly, we're on YouTube at Plan9Crunch, and we'd be very, very appreciative if you subscribe to us. So anyways, thank you for this time, and I hope you enjoy this. We'll be back with more from Plan9Crunch. We never stop giving these things for you, and because we enjoy it, it's our passion. And that's a wrap.